Okay, NoSQL is anti-relational. A short rant on intellectual dishonesty. So the origins of this talk have to do with a kind of a tiff I had with a NoSQL vendor that, for purely marketing reasons, I believe, wanted to label their NoSQL database Relational NoSQL, which I told them was kind of a non sequitur, and they didn't really appreciate hearing that. But anyway, that's the origin here. So first of all, SQL is not equal to relational, okay? Relational is, the relational data model was developed by Ted Codd in the late 60s and early 70s. It's extremely well defined. It's probably one of the most well-defined constructs in computing that we have. It's based on real mathematics, and but it's not equivalent to SQL. SQL is just simply a declarative language that was designed to interface with relational databases. Now it's become dominant, and it's basically become more or less equated with relational databases. But SQL looks like this, but just putting a SQL-like API in front of my washing machine does not turn it into a relational database. Okay. So yeah. So let's talk about some of the differences here. First of all, fundamentally at the data model level, in a relational database, per Codd, all data resides in tables, or relations, as he called them, right? Tables is sort of the SQL name for relations. And we could do a full stop right here, right? Because NoSQL databases, you can shove documents, JSON objects, Java classes, pretty much anything imaginable, except tables usually. You could shove your grandmother into one if you felt like it, right? So we could actually just take a full stop and everybody go to lunch here, because this is enough, in my mind, to pretty much prove my point that NoSQL is anti-relational. But in the interest of entertaining you for 7 minutes and 53 seconds more, I'll go further. Structurally, relational databases presume and require a schema in advance of putting data into the database. And a schema refers to tables composed of very specific named columns with very specific types, even domains, which is an aspect of the relational model that hasn't quite been properly implemented by most vendors. But these are all defined in advance, right? The structure for the data is defined in advance, and data coming into the database conforms to the schema on entry, or it doesn't get in, okay? In contrast, in NoSQL databases, data kind of just goes in no matter what, right? And they have this notion of schema on read, okay? So they apply some sense making to the data when you read it. And if you happen to shove your grandmother into the NoSQL database and you decide on read that she should be considered a lizard, that's perfectly okay. Logical models. Structure again. In a relational database, basically data drives the database design. These principles of normalization that are, things that old timers like me used to argue about over endless meetings, trying to figure out fully normalized designs for our enterprise data models. I mean, people don't really even think about these things anymore. I'm not sure that most NoSQL proponents probably couldn't name first normal form, much less second or third. But the truth of it is, in NoSQL, the applications drive the database design, okay? So you're trying to build a shopping cart, and you're going to build a shopping cart no matter what. And you're going to get the data together that you need to put your shopping cart together, and normalizing it and potentially sacrificing performance is just a non-starter. So typically, NoSQL logical models are highly non-normalized. They're basically driven by applications. You want to bring on a new application? You design a new database. Operationally, relational databases are characterized by declarative interfaces, and these are considered highly desirable, and SQL being the preeminent one of those. And in relational databases, because of highly normalized schemas, joins are fundamental, okay? You join on foreign keys, and that is a fundamental operation. And it's not unusual in a database with a large number of tables I don't know what you think is large, but let's say 100, 1,000. Multi-table joins, 4, 5, 6 tables are not uncommon. Well, in NoSQL, declarative interfaces are dangerous. If you came to Iggy's talk, he talked about sharding. Declarative language interfaces that allow you to specify in a declarative fashion how much data you want to touch, that could potentially touch a lot of data, many shards, okay? So in NoSQL, the more shards you got to touch, the worse your performance is going to be, especially for updates, right? And in NoSQL databases, joins tend to be anathema. You get past a 2-table join and you are very well likely to be in trouble, okay? So, you're talking to a NoSQL vendor that says they're relational, bring them your 100-table schema, okay? And see what they say. All right, consistency. All right, well, with respect to consistency in relational databases, we're very used to sort of what I'll call absolute consistency, and the so-called ACID properties are the measure of that. Well, in NoSQL databases, they have this notion of eventual consistency, right? Which, why say in 2 words what you can say in 1 word, okay? That is inconsistent, right? Eventual consistency, it's like, kind of pregnant. So in summary, we've looked at the data model, fundamental structure, schemas, logical models, operations, and consistency. In all those cases, we've seen that NoSQL is not relational, okay? So if somebody comes to you and says, I have a relational NoSQL database, basically, they're blowing smoke up your ass, okay? And that's it.